or in the colours of, sorry, electric green and brown.
What the do I do with that? Hey guys, so recently I was asked to take part in a community challenge by Dewi from Guardians of Wiltshire. The challenge was to paint a randomly drawn battle company with colours selected by somebody else taking part in the challenge. There's 18 of us taking part in this challenge, spread across multiple YouTube channels and blogs, and we were all asked to submit 2 colours each to be used by another participant. This isn't a limited palette challenge, it's not that restrictive, but the 2 colours you draw have to be used prominently on the models. For my battle company, I was drawn Kana. Now that's not a Middle-earth faction that I'm naturally drawn to, so it was a good excuse to get some new miniatures. The battle company consists of 4 of the plastic warriors of Harad and 3 of the metal watchers of Kana. More on my colour choices in a bit. First things first, and that was to get the miniatures and start assembling them. The Haradrim was simple enough, only the models with spears had multiple pieces, so they went together quickly. But preparing the watchers of Kana was interesting. I hadn't worked on any metal models for a while, and I'd forgotten about all the little bits of flash and how cleaning up mould lines isn't as simple as it is with plastic models. It made me really appreciate the quality of the plastics that we have now, but I do still have a huge soft spot for those old Middle-earth metal sculpts. They have so much character and a real feel of nostalgia for me, as I started my hobby journey back with the battle games in Middle-earth magazines. They did take a bit longer to prepare, but in the end it was still pretty straightforward. Now that all the models are assembled, it's time to hit them with a quick zenithal prime of black and white to prepare them for painting. I went with quite a heavy layer of white because I'm planning to use contrast paints for some of the robes and cloth. They should work well as a base coat here, as they have lots of folds and texture. I did prep a couple of extra models to use for test paint schemes, as being honest I was a little bit worried about the colours I'd drawn for this challenge. I was drawn colours by Harry Parkhill from the Entmoot podcast and the Battle Games of Middle-earth channel, and he was kind enough to pick me brown and electric green. Brown is easy, but you might be asking the same question I did. What is electric green? A quick trip to Google gave me this. I tried to incorporate this type of green into the robes and cloth, but was never really happy with how it turned out. Then I had a moment of inspiration. What about if this battle company is a band of assassins, scouting out ahead of the main army, trying to take out key enemy targets? Wouldn't they have poisoned weapons? That was it. I had my theme. Now it was time to dive into the real painting. I'm a fan of getting projects done, so I approach this with the same techniques that I approach a lot of my projects. I think it's easy for us hobbyists to put painting projects off as we're constantly comparing ourselves to painters that we see on places like Instagram, YouTube and Facebook hobby groups. We think we can never be as good as those that we see, so we spend all of our time looking at hobby tips and searching for that perfect technique to reach the next level, instead of just getting on and painting our own miniatures. Recently I've been trying to stop doing this and instead just enjoy painting miniatures to my own standards. I focus on the techniques and painting styles that give me the biggest reward for my time investment. Things like zenithal priming, contrast paints, washes and dry brushing. I use those to establish 90% of the paint job, and then just focus final highlights on prominent areas and metallics to make them stand out. Over time, I find myself naturally improving as my brush control and colour choices get better from practice and experience. And that made me realise the painters that we compare ourselves to have likely got years of experience that they've learned from. So please, stop comparing yourself to others and just get stuck into your own projects. You'll be surprised by what you can achieve. As you can see, I've covered the brown with several different shades on the robes and the cloth, so the final touch for these miniatures was to apply some lovely electric green to represent the poison on the weapons. At this point, as I'd made good time on finishing the miniatures, I thought I'd dive in and make a display board too, as some of the other creators here were doing the same. Again, like when painting the miniatures, I wanted to experiment with speed building on display board. What techniques, items and processes could I use to make this happen fast? I started with an old picture frame and cut a bit of foam board to size to replace the glass and backboard. This gave me a solid base to build from. I rummaged through my scenery box and found some suitable bits that I could use as scatter, so simply stuck them to the foam board with super glue. It's faster than hand making things from foam or other craft supplies. I used some coloured sprays to get the base coats down and gave everything an ivory dry brush. After applying a layer of brown to the remaining ground sections, I then brought the tones on the scenery together using a simple brown wash made from craft paint. After a quick dry faster blast with the hairdryer, I could move on to ground textures. The key to building terrain or scenic displays quickly is to use natural materials that don't need painting. So I used real stones to represent larger rocks and boulders, and then a sand and grit mix to be the general ground cover. After a good soak with matte scenic sealant, I left this to dry overnight, and the whole process only took me about 2 hours from start to finish. Now that's all done and I'm waiting for it to dry, I wanted to check in with you guys and thank you for your support and your patience. I want to apologise for the larger gaps between my last couple of videos, but life is mad, and this is a hobby for me. It's an escape from normal life and a chance to connect with other hobbyists just like you. So I'm deliberately avoiding setting a hard schedule, as I don't want this to become a drag. However, I do still have so many ideas for future videos, including more painting and scenery things, so please do remember to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to catch what's coming next. Now, I'm going to go and enjoy the rest of my day, so I'll catch you in the morning.
The next morning.
So it's the morning after now and everything is stuck down fast. This stuff is magic. It's time to move on to the last little bits. I'm going to add a few final touches, like a bit of dry brushing on the scatter terrain, just to bring the details back out. And I'm gluing some tufts down to add a bit more visual interest and break up the ground cover. I'm using the same sand and grit mix to base the models themselves, so I can make sure that they match the display board. This is a mix that I made myself, but I do also use pre-made mixes from places like Geek Gaming, and they save you so much time and hassle. After a quick rim job, the Kana Battle Company was done. By cutting a few corners and using the tips and techniques that I've highlighted, you can have a whole battle company and a display board done in a really short amount of time, ticking another project off your list and helping to keep the hobby momentum going. The same can be said for any other skirmish game like Kill Team, Warcry, Frostgrave, and even for whole army projects if you work through them unit by unit. I'm so pleased with how this turned out, particularly the display board, considering it was only a couple of hours work, and it's really refreshing to complete a project in such a short time frame, even if working the electric greening was a bit of a challenge. I think I've done the colour choices justice, whilst keeping them appropriate for the Middle-earth setting. And now I've got a rather lovely display piece to sit in my hobby cabinet forever. It was great fun to be involved in such a large community project, and I want to say a big thanks to Dewi for bringing me in. And a big thanks to everyone else who took part for the constant feedback and motivation as we worked on our projects. I've included links to everyone else's work in the video description, so please do go and check them out. I hope you found some of these tips useful and you can incorporate them into your workflow to help you get projects done. If you've got any other tips about speed painting or building, then please drop them in the comments. Thanks for watching, catch you in the next one.